All know it can be very hard to figure out the right thing to say to someone who is in the throes of grief. I've learned this the hard way. My own amazing husband just died in July. And since then, I've seen people struggle for how best to comfort me. And I've been very surprised by how even kind, nice comments from friends can set me off somehow. Here now for apparently a personal therapy session, just kidding, and to help all of us better deal with grief is our friend, Dr. Jeff Gardere. Dr. Gardere, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Of course, and my condolences, of course.
Thank you. And I just wanted to talk to you because I would never have known 3 months ago, before this happened to me, that the nicest just pleasantries hit very differently. How are you? We all ask each other that every day. And it's so interesting. My teenage daughter told me last week that she now sees that as the most personal, vulnerable question you could ever ask someone.
You made an excellent point of it in your article, by the way, which I am now sharing with my patients who are either on the receiving end of the grieving or are trying to reach out to someone else. So when we ask someone, how are you? That person is in such grief, in such crisis. How do they answer that question? I mean, they are going through an existential change in their lives. And that's the last thing they want to be questioned about. I think we can be more specific when we reach out to someone and asking them, well, how are you doing with regard to making arrangements? Or how was your particular meal the other day? Or how has it been for you to get through this particular day? Instead of asking such a broad question when someone is going through that kind of pain and may be confused and may be in shock.
Yeah, that's what I learned, that the existential questions are just really hard to answer. You know, we don't know how to answer them anymore. And by the way, I mean, I've gotten a very nice response to the article, and I hope everybody goes to read it on CNN.com. But I didn't mean to make anybody feel guilty. I myself asked these 5 questions that now set me off. I asked them of friends for decades. I didn't know that they can be, you're so raw in grief and you're just, you know, an exposed nerve ending walking around, that I didn't know simple questions. The next one was, how can I help? And that one is very hard to answer for grieving people. Why is that?
Well, simply because there are so many things that someone can do, but when you're in the grieving process, it's not like you're going to start listing things and you don't want to inconvenience anyone while you are in your own grieving state. So I think it's really important for people to just, instead of asking, how can I help? Just make a very small gesture, bringing a meal or offering to take someone shopping, or saying, well, listen, I'll just sit with your children while you are out taking care of other things around funeral arrangements or whatever the case may be. So it's just a little gestures. And I agree with you, Allison, your article, and I tell people all the time, it's not that people are doing the wrong thing. We don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. It's that in these very personal times, it's important to come in a little bit better equipped, you know, with some things that are tried and true in helping someone who is grieving. So, you know, with no finger pointing here, no blame game. It's just that how do we come together in a more substantial way during these difficult times?
Because let's face it, all of us at some point will be close to grief somehow. And so I think the feeling, at least now that I have in it, is you don't want to be othered, so to speak, you know, to feel as though you're on your own island away from everybody and people saying, you know, at some point,
It's that in these very personal times, it's important to come in a little bit better equipped, with some things that are tried and true in helping someone who is grieving. So, with no finger pointing here, no blame game. It's just that how do we come together in a more substantial way during these difficult times?
Because let's face it, all of us at some point will be close to grief somehow. And so I think the feeling, at least now that I have in it, is you don't want to be othered, so to speak, to feel as though you're on your own island away from everybody and people saying, I can't imagine what you must be going through. We don't want this to be unimaginable, but I'm sure, Dr. Gardere, you feel this. People do avoid this topic. It's hard to talk about.
Absolutely. And when you say, I can't imagine what you're going through, even though it comes from the heart, but it further isolates that individual. If you can't imagine what I'm going through, then I must really be alone in this. And so one of the things that I think we can do is, instead of using those particular words, or maybe following it up with something like thinking about some of the grief that you have experienced in your own life. That's how we develop empathy, and that's how we develop validation for what it is that the person is going through. We don't have to try to say words that accidentally isolate them. More than anything else, sometimes it's good just to sit there with them and not say anything. Just be the rock, just be the person to let them know that they're not alone.
Totally agree. Sometimes you can just show up and not have to say the right things. Dr. Gardere, thank you.